Hi there. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've got a fun fall window card to share using the Hero Arts Studio card kit for September. I love how the little squirrel peeks through the front, and then the inside mirrors the scene so it all ties together. So stick around and let's assemble this card. The stamp set comes with tons of images. I picked out a few that I really loved for this tree scene and stamped them with Gina K amalgam ink in chocolate truffle. And then I colored them up with my Copics in a bunch of fall colors. I'll have all of those listed on my blog if you're interested. Next, I used the coordinating dies in the kit to die cut all the little elements. This makes fussy cutting so easy. I don't have to do anything with my scissors. I just tape down my dies and then run that through my die cut machine, and it's all set to go where I can use those on my card. I just set those to the side and I grabbed the large tree trunk die also included in the kit, and it has this little window cutout as well. I lined that up on some color wheel cardstock and ran that through my die cut machine. I have that lined up over to the left side of my card because I want to leave a little bit of room on the inside for my sentiment. Next, I ran my craft cardstock through my die cut machine using the wood grain fancy die cover plate. And I'm just going to glue that down onto my card front. This is just a basic white cardstock A2 card, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm using liquid glue to make sure all those little die cut details are nice and flat. I'm using a large acrylic block to make sure I get a really good adhesion. There's lots of detail in that wood grain, so I just want to make sure every little bit is nice and flat. I'm just going to trim off the bottom of that card so it's even. Now for the window part, I have my tree just placed on my card front, not glued down. I'm going to use some repositionable adhesive and put that on the back of the tree trunk hole that we die cut earlier, and that will give me perfect alignment for later. So I want to make sure that that's in place. Remove my tree, and then I'm just going to realign that die around that negative die cut. It will almost lock in place around that shape. And then I'm going to grab some washi tape and just tape that down so it doesn't move on me when I put this through my die cut machine. I am a big believer in taping things down for that reason. Next, I'm going to open up my card and lay it flat and then run that through my die cut machine and then gently remove the die cut area. And now we have a window to the inside of our card that's going to line up perfectly with the tree trunk that we had placed earlier. Next, I'm just going to take a pencil and draw a line inside that window area, and that will kind of give me an idea of where to place my elements on the inside of my card in a little bit. I'm just grabbing all the little things that are going to be in the front of my card in front of that little window and just kind of getting an idea of where they will be placed. I'm going to grab that pencil again and just kind of outline where the squirrel and the acorns are. Again, this just gives me a guideline for when I do some stamping on the inside of my card. I want to make sure that it lines up and coordinates with what's on the front. So I'm just going to open up my card and place that inside a MISTI stamping tool. I'm using some Gina K ink again, this time in craft, and I'm going to stamp the acorns using that pencil guide that I have from before. Next, I grab some Post-it tape and I'm going to stamp again, and this is going to be a mask for when I stamp my squirrel. So I just stamped that, and then I'm going to fussy cut up and around the top of those acorns to give me a mask. And then place that right back over that stamped image. And then I'll grab my squirrel, line him up using that pencil guide, and then stamp him again using that craft ink again. Super easy. I'm just going to do a little bit of ink blending on the inside of the card to kind of create background that will be seen from the inside and the front of the card. This is Distress Ink peeled paint for the grass, and then I'm using peacock feathers for the sky. I am using a very light hand. I want the inside to be very light and muted. I don't want it to compete with any writing that I might want to do on the inside of the card, so I am brushing off some of that ink on some scrap paper and then lightly ink blending that around my stamped image. And when you're done, you can remove that mask. Next, we're going to start building the front of the card. I am lining up my squirrel and that tree trunk. I need to chop off part of his tail so you don't see it, so it looks like he's actually in the hollow of the tree. So I'm using my pencil to get a line, and then I'm just going to snip off a little bit of that tail. And then I'm going to glue him to the front side of that die cut hole and lining him up over the inside stamped image. I did the same thing with the acorns. Now we need to work on our little tree. I'm going to glue on all the little leaves to the back of the die cut tree branches. I added one to the top branch, and then I'll put two in the bottom branch, and they're just super cute. Before I add that tree trunk to the card, I want to wrap it with some burlap string. I'm just going to wrap some string around that base about 3 times and then tie it in a simple knot. I like to tuck that tail in and behind all of my strands and then tie my knot. That way they're bundled together. To me, it just looks cleaner and it kind of keeps them in place. Just going to slide that up a little bit so it's in place, and then I have this acorn and leaf tag that I'm just going to pull both of my tail ends of the string through, and then I'll tie a little bow. Just helps hold that little tag in place and just adds a cute little element. Super easy, super cute. Then I'll just fiddle with the size until I'm happy and then snip off those tails. And then to keep that little tag in place, I'll add a little foam tape right behind it, and then that way I know it won't fall off or move around. Next, I added some foam tape behind the tree, and then I'm just going to line that up and over our little squirrel window. Make sure that's nicely adhered, and that finishes off the front of the card. Now for the sentiment, I decided I wanted him to kind of hold the thankful like it's a sign. So I trimmed down the sentiment strip so each one was a block, and then I just glued that down on the inside of the card. I put the thankful in his hands and then the for you kind of off and to the side so you couldn't see those from the front of the card. Now to hide the sentiment, I'm going to use that little heart, and I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to the back of the squirrel on the front to pick up the heart. So the squirrel on the front of the card is holding the heart, and then the squirrel on the inside is holding the sentiment. And here is the finished card. I just love how that little squirrel is peeking through the tree trunk window and how the scene continues on the inside with the sentiment. It was such an easy way to make a window card that feels extra special. All the supplies are listed below and on my dollhouse-designs.com blog. Thank you so much for creating with me, and I'll see you again soon for another video.